Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere a little grim. But don't worry, you're already doomed. The marble courtyard gleams in the moonlight, its patterned surface glistening like sugar glass. The scent of rose water hangs faintly in the air, mingling with the sharp tang of sandalwood smoke and something vaguely fermented. You step barefoot onto the tiles, and the heat of the stone clutches your soles like an angry spirit. You think it must be a trick of the sun until you realize it's midnight. The stones are still radiating the fury of the mule sun, absorbed and weaponized from a day that had no business being that hot. Your toes curl. Wobbled you are, now both a royal guest and a sizzling kebab. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment below with your location and what time it is for you. Bonus points if you're also melting right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in the heart of the Mule Empire, at the peak of its opulence. You've been summoned or perhaps sentenced to spend the day in the Imperial Palace, specifically in the main courtyard, where visitors are greeted with both visual splendor and low-grade suffering. You were expecting something serene, a peaceful marble haven, maybe a few fountains, the gentle murmur of a breeze through china trees. But Mule grandeur, as you're beginning to learn, is less about comfort and more about aesthetic domination. Every surface is either too hot, too bright, or too slippery. The floor underfoot is alabaster and black marble, laid out in precise, almost hypnotic geometric patterns. It's gorgeous, it's blinding, it's also slowly cooking your feet. You try to glide like the noble courtiers you glimpsed earlier, but your gait resembles more of a frantic hobble. There's no shade to hide beneath, just columns standing tall like sentries, their own surfaces hot to the touch, and yet everything has been designed to impress. From the water channels running along the edge of the courtyard, filled with chilled rose water, to the towering arches decorated with gold leaf floral motifs that feel excessive even from a distance. Why? You dip a toe into the channel, hoping for relief. It's warm. Somehow, maybe the water gave up. By now, your vision is shimmering, whether from the heat or the sheer intensity of the mosaic tiles. It's hard to say. Across the courtyard, you spot a pavilion with cushioned seating and what appears to be a decanter of something cold. You shuffle toward it like a lost pilgrim, but a palace attendant blocks your path with a well-practiced smile and zero empathy. For honored guests only, he says. You blink. Are you not honored? Apparently not enough. Instead, you're directed to sit on a stone bench carved directly into the courtyard wall. It's been baking in the sun since sunrise. You do your best. There's an audible sizzle. Remember that time you complained about the AC being too cold at the office? Yeah, the universe remembers too. Still, there's beauty in the torment. Above you, pigeons flutter through latticed juggers, their wings slicing the light into dappled fragments on the floor. Every corner of the space has been designed for symmetry, harmony, and something called WAQF, a kind of spiritual alignment. And yet, none of this stops the sweat currently streaming down your lower back. You try to appreciate the historicity of it all. Emperor Akbar himself once paced this exact courtyard. Shah Jahan supposedly sat here, contemplating the architectural proportions of his future Taj Mahal. You, meanwhile, are wondering if your tunic can be wrung out like a dish towel. A young servant glides by with a tray of pomegranate juice, the condensation beating down the side like a cruel joke. You reach for one instinctively, only to be told they're reserved for the inner circle. You nod, pretending you knew that. Then immediately wonder how much it would cost your dignity to just follow him back to the kitchen. Historians Still argue whether the mule court genuinely prioritized hospitality, or whether the layers of ceremonial suffering were part of the charm. Some argue the elaborate rituals were intended to test your poise, your patience, and your capacity to endure radiant heat without visibly wilting. Others say it was simply a byproduct of building with marble and not bothering with shade. Even the fountains, which look decorative and soothing, are pressurized using hidden channels and gravity-fed systems, making the whole water display slightly unpredictable. A miscalculated step and you're suddenly sprayed with lukewarm water in full view of the elite, which is exactly what happens next. You slip. A fine mist covers your face. Your tunic clings to your stomach, and the only sound you hear is a nearby noblewoman pretending not to laugh. At this point, you consider lying flat on the marble like a roast duck, just to see if things could get worse. But a man in brocade robes strolls past, his shoes curved like question marks and his demeanor pure indifference. He glances at you, arches one brow, and moves on. That's when you notice something. His shoes, they're padded, probably silk-lined. Yours, thin leather. You may be at court, but you're not of it. Suddenly, a loud clang reverberates through the courtyard as the afternoon gong sounds. This means lunch is being served in the adjacent garden. A brief reprieve, everyone round. You starts moving in slow procession toward the far end, where carved sandalwood doors lead to shaded colonnades. You follow, only to be intercepted again. Turns out you're not allowed to enter until you've completed the formal courtyard passage. It's a ceremonial requirement, another lap. In full view of whoever's bored enough to watch, you begin the walk, slowly, deliberately, trying not to wince. The heat rises from the floor in visible waves, and you wonder if the soles of your feet might actually blister. Meanwhile, a bird lands beside you, stares blankly, and then immediately flies away as if it refuses to be here any longer than absolutely necessary. There's a beauty to the precision of it all. Though, you notice tiny silver bells embedded into the corners of the fountains, placed so that when the wind moves the water just right, they chime faintly. It's the kind of detail that would seem romantic if you weren't soaking wet, half-cooked, and increasingly suspicious that this marble paradise is secretly a training ground for emotional endurance. Why? Reach the far wall, place your hand gently on a carved lion's head that's tradition, and bow slightly. Behind you, a eunuch claps 3 times, signaling you've completed the passage. A small door opens. You've survived the first ordeal. Barely. You shuffle through the carved sandalwood door and into what should be relief a shaded hallway, lined with thick rugs and velvet tapestries. But immediately, a new discomfort emerges. The air inside is heavy, like someone tried to trap luxury in a jar, then left it in the sun too long. It's thick with the scent of rose attar, crushed jasmine, and a syrupy musk that clings to your tongue like perfume-infused honey. You cough politely. No one else does, apparently. Your lungs are just weak. His servant leads you down the corridor, nodding for you to remove your outer tunic as a sign of respect. You do, reluctantly, revealing a second tunic beneath it, and under that, yet another layer. Welcome to mule fashion, where opulence means dressing like a ceremonial cake. You had heard the court favored layers for elegance. What you didn't realize is that layers meant somewhere between 5 and 14, each made of progressively more delicate fabric, and each designed to show just how committed you are to suffering in silence. At this point, you're sweating like a guilty minister. The silk underlayers cling to your back, your sleeves balloon with trapped humidity, and the embroidery on your collar is so stiff it's beginning to soar into your neck with the persistence of a sugarcane grinder. Still, you manage a polite nod as another noble passes by, his turban glinting with gemstones the size of plums. He nods back barely, you assume it's respect. It might also be the recognition of shared discomfort, the silent brotherhood of overdressed survivors. Mule royal robes are famously exquisite. The jammer, a long robe tied at the side, was typically dyed with natural pigments indigo, turmeric, saffron, and embroidered with gold or silver thread. Sounds luxurious, right? Until you realize that metallic thread has the flexibility of a dried twig and the warmth retention of a coal stove. You can't lean back without creasing the emperor's seal embroidered into your spine. You can't raise your arms without pinching your armpits in embroidered vice grips. Even your sash meant to signify rank has tassels that slap your thigh with every step like a passive-aggressive reminder of your social station. Historians still argue whether these robes were meant to convey majesty or simply test human endurance. Some point out that Mule emperors like Zhongzhou were obsessed with detailed dress codes, issuing actual decrees about which colors and fabrics were appropriate for what time of year, which rank, and even which hour. Others argue it was more performative if you didn't look uncomfortable. Were you even trying? There's no comfort in rebellion either. If you opt for a simpler dress, you're mistaken for a servant. If you underlayer, you're seen as indecent. So here you are, sweating, wheezing softly, and trying to maintain posture while every fold of fabric on your body stages a minor uprising. Remember that courtyard heat. It's still in your bones. Only now, it has nowhere to escape. You reach the audience chamber just as a breeze rolls through finally. Something merciful, but your relief lasts precisely 1 second before the scent of amber resin and incense chokes it out again. An oval gestures toward your feet. You glance down and realize your embroidered slippers have left imprints in the carpet, moist ones. You shuffle away, pretending to inspect a nearby tapestry. It's of a royal hunt. Everyone looks elegant, powerful, dry. You're ushered into a sitting area and presented with a goblet of cool water. You take it gratefully, only to find it's been infused with saffron, cardamom, and what can only be described as floral soap. You sip anyway. Hydration is hydration. Then someone adjusts your sash for you tighter. Apparently, yours was dripping, and that is deeply unfashionable. You gasp like a corseted goose. Meanwhile, your modern-day brain flickers in. Remember that time you changed outfits 3 times for a dinner party. Now imagine each change requiring a team of 2 attendants, 15 minutes of folding, and a silent prayer that you don't drop anything on silk that took 3 weeks to dye with beetles and crushed shells. Your collar starts to itch. Not in a gentle way. It's the kind of itch that suggests a caterpillar might be living there. You try to casually scratch it, only to be corrected by a steward who whispers that touching your neck while seated signals disdain in court etiquette. You freeze, try to smile. Your eye twitches. There's an elderly noble beside you whose robes look even heavier than yours. You wonder if he's okay. But then he moves with elegance, his slippers gliding soundlessly across the marble as he exits. You suspect he has a sweat-absorbing underrobe that nobody told you about. Or maybe he's just built different or dehydrated beyond caring. The French detail round your sleeve catches on your neighbor's bracelet, and you both nearly topple a small brass hookah. You apologize under your breath, which is instantly swallowed by the hum of distant sitar music. The fabrics rustle like leaves. A peacock screams from somewhere just outside. Sounding vaguely judgmental, you get up to stretch. Another mistake. Standing reveals the full extent of your body's betrayal. Your knees crack, your sash tightens, and one of your slippers makes a squelch noise that you pretend didn't happen. You shuffle toward the garden again, your only hope. On the way, you pass through a hallway of mirrors, literally. A gallery called Sheesh Mahal, where every wall is inlaid with tiny shards of reflective glass. It's dazzling. It's also like walking inside a disco ball while wearing a wool parka. The light bounces everywhere. You see 12 versions of your own damp. Red-faced self and instantly feel the urge to apologize to all of them. At last. The garden. The shade is real. The grass is trimmed. Birds chirp. A breeze dares to touch your damp collar. You sit carefully on a low ottoman covered in something velvety and blessedly cool. You breathe. A servant brings you a mango slice. It tastes like joy. Then someone taps your shoulder. It's time to change into your evening robes. Different color, different embroidery. More layers. You consider the mango pit in your hand and briefly contemplate rebellion. But then you sigh, stand up, and allow yourself to be redressed like a mannequin with poor circulation. Remember that courtyard heat. It's trapped inside your third robe now. Right next to your dreams of personal space. You're beginning to suspect. The palace is testing you. Not your loyalty, not your intelligence, just your basic will to keep standing upright while being smothered by fabric and tradition. Now that you've been redressed again, you're escorted into one of the perfumed reception halls. You brace yourself. Last time, the scent situation nearly caused hallucinations. This time, it's somehow worse. The door opens and you're instantly slapped in the face with a blend of oil, camphor, and rose. It's like someone sprayed a bottle of fragrance directly into each nostril. There's a burning sensation behind your eyes. You blink, you swallow. You remember the mango and consider going back for it, even if it means fighting a peacock. Too late now. The hall is breathtaking. In the same way, standing too close to a fireworks display is breathtaking. High ceilings gilded with gold leaf, columns wrapped in polished lapis lazuli, and rugs so thick they could muffle an earthquake. Attendants line the walls with trays of incense and silver containers filled with crushed petals and sandhi, and resembling powdered moonlight. This is mule hospitality. This is also olfactory combat. You're guided to your seat, more of a cushion, really strategically positioned beneath a hanging bouquet of fragrant marigolds. The flowers look innocent, but soon they start releasing something sticky and sweet into the air, a pollen mist that clings to your upper lip. You shift, you sniff, and that's when the real challenge begins, because here in the palace, sneezing is political. Historians still argue whether it was merely frowned upon or considered an outright insult to the emperor if someone sneezed in a formal setting. What's agreed upon is that during certain religious or astrological observances, a sneeze could be interpreted as a bad omen, especially if it occurred during poetry recitation or silk weighing, both of which are about to happen. Your nose itches. Of course it does. A gentle tingle at first, then a prickling warmth, like tiny feathers dancing in your sinuses. You try to focus on your breath, on the feel of the cushion beneath you, on the absurdly heavy ring that's slowly cutting off circulation to your right index finger. Anything to distract from the rising urge. The courtier to your left is reciting couplets about the moon. His voice is soft, melodic, and probably meaningful, though you can't concentrate over the internal war happening in your nose. The man to your right gives you a look. It's not unkind, but it's definitely a warning. You grip your sash tighter. Think dry thoughts. Think of sand. Think of parchment. Think of that one time your cousin overcooked lentils and no one spoke of it again. And then release. You sneeze. It's not loud. It's the most polite, strained, apologetic sneeze a human can manage. But it's still a sneeze. Time seems to pause. The poem continues, barely. But several heads turn. An attendant makes a discreet mark on a scroll. You have no idea what that means, but you suspect it isn't good. You whisper an apology to the universe and pretend to be studying a nearby mural. It depicts Georgia meeting a European ambassador. Everyone in the scene looks serene and composed. You imagine the ambassador sneezed at least once and was never invited back. Meanwhile, your modern self is screaming. You once sneezed 6 times in a row at Target and no one cared. Here, one rogue exhale and you're practically branded a threat to the poetic order of things. And let's not forget, your third tunic is now vaguely damp from panic sweat, trying to salvage dignity. You join a procession to the incense table. This is meant to clear the sinuses and purify the spirit. It's also a test. Each guest selects a blend of crushed herbs and spices to toss into the censer. Pick the wrong mix, and you might be implying poor taste or worse, alignment with an astrological house currently out of favor. You reach for a frankincense. Pause. Then pivot to saffron bark because someone influential is watching. You drop it into the brazier, and the smoke curls upward in a way that says, "You're trying too hard." You nod anyway. His steward approaches and offers you a perfumed handkerchief. It's meant to absorb excess scent, but it's more decorative than useful. You dab your forehead with it and immediately regret it. The scent is magnified. It's like rose petals for to battle with cloves and lost. Now you're standing beneath a lattice window. Light streams in, catching the fine particles in the air pollen. Incense ash, powdered sandalwood. You realize you've been breathing history's most expensive allergens for hours. You sneeze again, silently, heroically, internally. Historians still debate how the mules managed to tolerate such overwhelming sensory environments. Some suggest that lifelong exposure made courtiers immune. Others believe that physical discomfort was part of the aesthetic and embrace of discipline over indulgence. Either way, no one is handing you allergy meds. A court musician begins playing a slow on a sad. The notes curling round the room like incense itself. You try to relax, to let the music distract you from the battlefield in your sinuses. You succeed for one glorious minute. Then the musician is joined by a singer whose voice is beautiful. Yes, but also vibrating at the exact frequency of your impending third sneeze. You excuse yourself. No one stops you. But you do catch the faintest smirk from a noble as you bow. Out, you step into the corridor, gasping softly for neutral air. It smells like stone and something dry and vaguely lemony. You nearly weep from relief. Outside, his servant fans you gently with a peacock feather fan. It helps slightly. You wipe your nose. The handkerchief is now useless. Your face glistens with effort and subtle regret. You glance back into the perfumed hole and wonder how anyone survives court life with a functioning respiratory system. A scholar once noted that the mules loved fragrances because they believed pleasant scents kept the soul elevated and illness at bay. Maybe so, but after spending an hour inside a walking potpourri basket, you begin to suspect that this belief was championed by someone who had never, ever sneezed. You're handed a new robe, thinner, looser, blessedly unscented, a small mercy. You nod, grateful, but just as you start to breathe again, you're informed that it's time to attend the poetry contest in the rose garden with burning incense and marigold gardens. Remember your old itchy collar. It's back, only this time. It smells like lavender. You return to the rose garden with cautious optimism. It's evening now. The sky softens into lavender, and the marble walkways glow faintly with the last light of day. Somewhere in the distance, a flute sighs a long note. Birds chirp with excessive politeness. You try to believe this might be the peaceful part. That maybe the worst is over. It isn't, because this evening's entertainment is the legendary mule cooling ritual where guests are pampered with fans, scented mists, and chilled flower garlands. It sounds divine until you realize that none of this is automatic. It's all powered by people, specifically young servants perched above the courtyard. operating ceiling-mounted punk as massive canvas fans that swing back and forth like lazy metronomes. You look up. A fan the size of a dining table flaps rhythmically above your head. You wonder how it stays up there. You try not to imagine it falling. Then, from stage left, a pair of attendants approach with a silver basin and a bundle of damp cloths. They bow, lift the cloths, and gently press one to your forehead. The sensation is brief, wet and confusing. The cloth smells like basil and vetiver. You'd say it's refreshing if it weren't also dripping down the inside of your ear. One of them whispers, for your comfort. You nod. Still not entirely sure if this is indulgence or some elaborate joke. Then comes the peacock feather fan. It flutters in front of your face with gentle dignity, producing a breeze so delicate it barely moves your hair, but absolutely does move your eyebrows in confusion. You thank them, they bow again. You blink away the basil water. Historians still argue whether these cooling rituals were genuinely soothing or just ceremonial spectacle. Some say the point wasn't refreshment, but opulence, showing guests that even the air itself could be shaped and served. Others argue that it was a genuine survival tactic in Delhi's infernal summers, where temperatures regularly threatened to melt stone and human resolve alike. You shift on your cushion, which is stuffed with rose petals and something spongy that squelches slightly beneath you. Maybe it's damp from earlier guests. Maybe it's always been damp. You try not to think about it. A courtier near you lets out a low sigh of contentment. He's been receiving a face fanning for 20 minutes straight. You try to match his expression, but your fan bearer is either distracted or philosophically opposed to wind. His wrist twitches once every 10 seconds, just enough to circulate your own breath back into your face. You consider offering to trade attendance, but how do you say that politely? Meanwhile, your modern self flashes back to hotel rooms with thermostats and ceiling fans that didn't require child labor. But here, every degree of temperature is managed by human effort and the hierarchy that comes with it. The emperor, of course, sits beside a fountain engineered to cool water through evaporation, a feat of neural engineering that somehow still hasn't reached your part of the courtyard. Remember that sweat you accumulated beneath the royal robes. It's still there, only now. It's being slow roasted under damp garlands of jasmine strung round your shoulders. You can't remove them. They're symbolic of what? You're not sure, possibly your commitment to enduring luxury without. Screaming dot at the center of the garden, the poetry contest begins. Courtiers step forward one by one to recite couplets, mostly about longing, moonlight, and the agony of being beautiful. The emperor claps softly after each verse. So does everyone else. You clap too, mostly to stay awake. The poet beside you leans over and whispers, "My verse is about a parrot that questions mortality." You nod solemnly, unsure whether he's joking. He isn't. He begins. His voice is breathy and slow. He rhymes parrot with chariot in a way that sounds meaningful. You listen. You try. You fail. Your eyes begin to close. This is a problem, because dozing off during a performance is considered disrespectful and possibly actionable. Depending on who notices, you straighten up, feigning sudden inspiration. Someone hands you a chilled towel. You place it over your face like haunted. Guest. It helps, briefly. Then it starts dripping again. Another verse begins, this time about a mango tree and lost innocence. It's better than the parrot, but just as you start to enjoy it, a gentle thwop lands on your back. A flower garland has slipped from a tree and landed directly on your spine. You lurch. A peacock nearby screams. You are now part of the evening's performance, and not in a flattering way. The peacock, apparently disturbed, begins pacing behind you. Its tail brushes your cushion with deliberate manners. You remain perfectly still. Everyone else is still, focused on the poetry, or pretending to be. You suspect they're all too tired to care. At this point, you notice a tiny brass bowl near your cushion. It contains something that smells like mint and crushed ice. You reach for it. A servant stops you. It is for Roma, he says. You nod, pretending you knew that. You return your hand slowly. There's movement above the punker operators. Are switching shifts. A new servant grabs the rope, and for one glorious moment, the fan swings harder. A cool gust brushes your cheek. You smile involuntarily. Then it returns to normal. Irregular, apologetic flapping. Historians still debate the labor systems that powered this kind of royal luxury. Some argue the punker pullers were apprentices, learning discipline. Others suspect they were simply the lower-strength palace workers, rotated frequently to prevent fainting. You watch the boy above you. He's sweating too. You feel a moment of kinship. Separated only by rank and 40 feet of braided rope, the poetry contest concludes. There is applause. The emperor waves his hand. A musician strikes a chord. Dinner is about to be served. You think this means food. It does. But also, more ritual. You rise carefully, hoping to shake off some of the petal fragments clinging to your tunic. Instead, your sash tightens again. You make a sound like a tea kettle and stagger forward. You are led to a low table surrounded by ornate cushions and yet more flower arrangements. This time, you're seated next to a noble woman who smells like tuberose and restraint. She does not speak. She does not blink. You take that as an invitation to remain silent and unthreatening. Food arrives in silver trays. Rice pilaf, spiced lamb, saffron-soaked figs. Everything looks like a painting. Everything is eaten with fingers. You hesitate, then dig in, only to be corrected by a gesture. You must eat only with your right hand, and in a very specific way, pinching food between 3 fingers like a calligrapher composing a love letter. You try. Your fig explodes. Juice runs down your wrist. You nod as if this was deliberate. By the end of the meal, your garland is wilted. Your robe smells like 11 different herbs, and your fingers are sticky with cultural misunderstandings. You are presented with rose water to rinse your hands. You splash hard. It goes up your sleeve. A small boy laughs behind a column. You return to your cushion. The evening nearly over. The fans creak above. A final breeze stirs your robe, and for just a moment, you think maybe you're getting used to this, until someone announces the all-night music vigil, and that you're expected to stay awake for it. Remember that damp rose petal cushion? You'll be sleeping on it tonight, upright. You are not sure when night fully fell. The sky is ink now, the stars smeared across it like powdered silver, but the palace doesn't sleep. Not ever. Certainly not tonight. You're informed that the all-night mehfil, or music vigil, is a time-honored tradition, a form of spiritual and artistic communion. It is also, you soon realize, a carefully disguised entrance test. You are guided, not invited, guided back into the central garden courtyard. The cushions have been rearranged in a precise semicircle, facing a low marble platform adorned with candles, jasmine garlands, and the looming shape of a tanpura. Incense smolders faintly in the corners. The smell is back, but softer now, like a memory trying not to offend you again. You take your seat and try to fold your legs politely, but they've gone on strike. They creak and resist like wooden planks. Your knees suddenly the property of a 90-year-old scribe. Across the courtyard, the emperor settles onto a raised divan. Everyone round you follows his cues: how to sit, when to breathe, whether to adjust their shawls. You copy them. You've learned that much. The fabric of your robe shifts again, still damp from that rose water hand rinse, and sticks to your side like a cold slap of humility. The first singer begins. It's a slow, meditative rocker, meant to be performed only after midnight. The notes are elongated, drawn like silk threads across time. It's beautiful, it's haunting. It's also hypnotic in the exact way your eyelids interpret as a lullaby. You jerk awake 3 minutes later, unsure if you actually fell asleep or just time traveled through boredom. A servant notices. He politely offers you a small cardamom pod. You suck on it, the taste sharp and bitter, forcing your eyes open for another 10 minutes. Historians still argue whether these overnight concerts were for actual enjoyment or simply part of courtly discipline. Some believe they were essential to spiritual life, tying music to cosmic rhythms. Others quietly note that few attendees ever stayed fully conscious past the third rocker. One even wrote that the snores of noblemen became part of the background harmony, a chorus of the surrender. Round you, no one moves. Everyone appears transfixed. You wonder if they've trained for this, some secret sleep-resistant conditioning you missed. You spot a man across the circle whose eyelids flutter every fourth note, like a moth refusing to land. He's surviving. You aspire to his level. The singer's voice dips into a lower register. Your spine adjusts itself involuntarily, desperate for a new position. You shift slightly, just slightly, and your elbow brushes against a silver lantern. It wobbles, you freeze. It does not fall. You exhale, very slowly. The next performance features a tabla player, whose fingers move faster than your thoughts. The rhythm pulses through the air like a heartbeat that's been caffeinated and trained. In mathematics, it's energizing, momentarily, until the 5th minute, when your brain can't process any more rhythmic complexity and just gives up. You try a trick, reciting multiplication tables in your head to stay alert. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 9 is wait. No, you are supposed to be focusing. Your eyes close again. You pretend to meditate. Your modern self chimes in. You once stayed awake during a 3-hour finance meeting by stress-eating almonds. Here, there's no food, only poetry, candlelight, and the increasing suspicion that the cushion beneath you is hiding something sharp. The vigil continues. Another musician, this one with a stringed instrument you don't recognize. He begins to sing in a language that is so musical it doesn't need translating. The crowd leans in. You do too. Mostly because your back is giving up and you need a new angle. A breeze floats through the garden. It's barely a whisper, but you feel it against your temples, where a mild headache is blooming from holding your head upright for hours. The fanboy up top must be asleep, because the punker has stopped moving entirely. You consider volunteering to pull the rope yourself, just for something to do. Another singer begins a ghazal about heartbreak. It's long, it's gorgeous, it's also, somehow, the 7th piece tonight about heartbreak. You begin to wonder if anyone here has ever had a healthy relationship. You certainly haven't, and that was with air conditioning. Your hand slips into your robe pocket and finds something. Folded, a blessing scroll. It was given to you earlier in the day, something about protection and good fortune. You open it now, hoping for comfort. It reads, "To suffer in silence is the first test of the wise." You close it and decide the universe has jokes. Hours pass, time stretches. Your thoughts blur into the music, into the scent of charred clothes, into the burn in your knees. You begin to lose the distinction between performance and reality. Maybe this is the point. Maybe the music vigil isn't about staying awake, it's about losing the self entirely, dissolving into sound and flower sweat until you emerge, reborn. As someone who appreciates pain as a form of cultural appreciation, someone stirs beside you. A noble has passed out gracefully, with a hand tucked beneath his chin and only a soft snore to mark his retreat. No one reacts. It's understood. You envy him. But your pride, what's left of it, keeps you upright. Historians note that mule music was often tailored to specific hours and even specific moods. The midnight robbers were for longing, introspection, divine melancholy. You're definitely experiencing all three. Plus numbness, the final performance is announced just as the first hints of dawn creep into the sky. A devotional piece, performed by a blind singer who is led into the circle and seated on a lotus-shaped cushion. His voice is soft, almost broken. It carries more meaning than your body can process. You listen. You actually listen. And for a moment, the fatigue quiets, the discomfort fades. There is only the slow arc of melody, and the whisper of birds starting to stir in the trees above. It's beautiful in a way that makes you forget the stiffness in your joints or the ache behind your eyes. You almost forgive the entire experience. The vigil ends. You rise. Somehow, the emperor departs. The guests begin to drift away like ghosts heading back to their marble crypts. You're told your room has been prepared. You follow a servant through shadowed corridors, your steps muffled by rose-scented carpets. You reach a chamber lit only by a single oil lamp. A bed awaits. It's not soft, but it's horizontal. You collapse onto it with the grace of a collapsed lung. Remember the first cushion you sat on this evening. This one smells the same. You don't care. You wake up feeling like a mummified mango, slightly shriveled, vaguely sticky, and very confused. It's morning. Somehow, a slice of warm light edges under the carved window lattice, scattering across the floor like shards of turmeric. You don't remember falling asleep, but your body does. Every joint files a formal complaint as you attempt to sit upright. Your knees have calcified. Your back feels like it spent the night negotiating with bricks. A knock at the door. You groan silently, respectfully, but with the spirit of a protest march. The door opens, and two attendants glide in with the calm certainty of people who've been up since before the sun had the nerve to shine. They are carrying your morning ensemble. It's gold. It's embroidered. It's heavier than your dignity. One of them bows and says, "It is time for the purification rituals." You try to respond. What comes out is a sound somewhere between a yawn and a whimper. He nods. As if this is a perfectly acceptable royal dialect, they guide you out through the corridor, where the stone floors are already warm, and into the Hammond, the imperial bathhouse. You've heard stories of the luxury here. Marble floors, perfumed steam, servants with loofahs made of silk threads. What no one told you is that the mule idea of purification was closer to spiritual exfoliation. Through near-death experiences, first, you're stripped down, not rudely, but with the casual precision of people who have done this 1,000 times. Your outer robe is removed, then your underrobe. Then, the inner robe that you didn't even know you were wearing. You are now dressed only in anxiety and optimism. You're led into a small marble chamber, steam curls from hidden vents. The air smells of eucalyptus, rose oil, and ambition at first. It feels wonderful, like walking into a floral cloud. Then, as your paws of heaven, you realize something's wrong. The heat, it's rising, rapidly. Your lungs feel thick. Your eyelids begin sweating. A drop of condensation lands on your shoulder and sizzles. This is how it begins, the mule morning ritual of sweat, soap, and social class. A servant appears with a bronze basin and begins pouring warm water over your shoulders. Not ladle warm, lava warm. You brace yourself. He's humming softly. You are not. Your breath hiccups as the heat clings to your spine like a loyal barnacle. Historians still argue whether these baths were meant to soothe or to cleanse through suffering. Some records describe them as therapeutic spaces, calm, spiritual, balancing. Others note that emperors like Shah Jahan employed entire teams of bath attendants, scrubbers, masseurs, and herbalists who worked with the intensity of battlefield surgeons. Either way, you are not in control of anything that happens next. Soap is presented, not the foamy, lavender-scented bar you're used to, but a gritty paste made of sandalwood, crushed almonds, and something that smells like regret. It's massaged into your skin with a cloth rough enough to polish a gemstone. You smile nervously as your arms are scrubbed, your back, your chest, the soles of your feet. There is no privacy. There is only exfoliation. Then the cold water arrives. Buckets of a dot without warning. It's not just cold, it's glacier soul removal cold. Your muscles seize. Your heart skips. You make a noise that sounds like a goose being startled by a drum. No one reacts. This is normal. This is purification. The clay mask is applied next, not to your face, but your entire body. It dries quickly, too quickly. You're told to stand still while it hardens. You resemble a distressed statue. Cracks begin, forming across your arms and thighs. You feel your hair tightening. You can no longer frown, which might be for the best. Remember that mango slice from earlier? You miss it now. You would trade a year of status for that mango, or a single towel. The attendants return and begin chipping the clay away with damp cloths. It flakes, it falls. You are reborn. Kind of. You are now cleaner, but also more confused about who you are as a person. A final rinse, and then rose water poured generously over your head, trickling down your back. It's the first thing. That doesn't hurt. You nearly cry. One of the attendants notices and hands you a dried lotus petal, which you are told to place under your tongue to calm the spirit. It tastes like faded paper and flour dust. At last, you are offered a towel. It's thin, decorative, mostly useless. You wrap it around yourself like someone pretending to be dry. Then comes the robe, freshly steamed, lemon-scented, and embroidered with gold thread. It feels like climbing back into your burdens, but this time cleaner. You're led to a low bench where your feet are placed in a bowl of cool water infused with mint and saffron. You close your eyes. It's almost pleasant. A servant begins massaging your ankles, another comb-scented oil into your hair. You're still vaguely damp, but for the first time, you stop twitching. This is when the barber arrives. You didn't ask for a barber, but here he is, with blades and wax and an eyebrow pencil. He smiles, you wince. First, he trims your beard, or creates one. You're not sure anymore. He applies something sticky to your cheeks and yanks. You levitate. He dabs with rose water. He hums. You plot revenge. He trims your nails, plucks a stray hair from your ear, then outlines your eyes with kohl. Murmuring something about the divine masculine gaze, you look in a bronze mirror. You resemble a worried sultan. Finally, you're scented with something mysterious, an oil pressed from tuberose and crushed pearls. You are told it was a favorite of Nur Jahan herself. You nod, as if this comforts you. It doesn't. You smell like a garden with ambitions. You're dressed again, this time in a pale blue robe threaded with silver. It weighs less, but you know better now. Luxury is never light. It just hides its heaviness better. You step out of the hammam, into the morning light. You are radiant. You are restored. You are exhausted. You have not yet had breakfast, and just as you prepare to slip quietly back to your quarters, someone approaches. His Majesty invites you to join the morning court. Of course he does. Remember, that clay mask, you'll be smiling through its ghost for the next 6 hours. The morning court convenes in the D1 Icos, the hall of private audience, a space that, at first glance, looks designed for angels and gods. Arched walls inlaid with semi-precious stones catch the sunlight like a chandelier in a dream. Gold leaf vines crawl up marble pillars. Every detail whispers wealth. But you know better now. These walls don't whisper, they smoke. Because for all the elegance, you are not here to be comforted. You are here to sit and wait and not fidget. You are guided to your assigned cushion, strategically placed near, but not too near, the throne platform. It is firmer than you remember cushions being, possibly made of crushed optimism. As you ease down onto it, you notice everyone round, you adjusting their posture, their robes, their expressions, in perfect synchrony. This is not just court. This is choreography. The emperor arrives. There is no trumpet blast, no theatrical flourish, just a subtle hush that falls over the hall like velvet. He takes his place under the chattery, the ceremonial canopy. A beam of light strikes his turban just so, and the effect is divine, or calculated, possibly both. You bow, careful to align your body exactly 35 degrees from vertical. Anything more is groveling. Anything less is arrogance. The room seems to hold its breath. Then the rituals begin. First, astrology briefings. You weren't expecting this. A court astrologer approaches the throne and reads from a palm leaf manuscript, forecasting cosmic patterns with the gravity of a man announcing monsoon schedules. Mercury is in retrograde. Venus is pleased. Saturn frowns. Everyone nods solemnly. You. Meanwhile, recall that Mercury being in retrograde once made you lose your keys and cry in traffic. Here, it might determine tax policies. Historians still argue whether the Mughal emperors actually believed in the astrology presented each day, or whether it was just ceremonial theater. Some suggest emperors used horoscopes to justify decisions already made. Others argue they took it deadly seriously. Either way, you don't dare laugh. Your facial muscles wouldn't allow it anyway. Next come the petitions. Subjects with grievances are escorted in one by one. They bow, present their cases, and await the emperor's verdict. You expect yelling. There isn't any. Only polite murmuring and very long silences while the emperor stares at the horizon like he's negot. Eyeing with time itself, occasionally he nods. Occasionally he raises a finger. When he speaks, it's barely above a whisper, but everyone reacts like thunder has struck. You wonder if he even said anything. Maybe he just blinked in a meaningful way. Maybe that's power. Then come the scrolls. An assistant reads out messages from other parts of the empire. Crop reports, trade updates, border skirmishes. You try to follow along, but the monotony is weaponized. Each sentence feels like it's being pressed between two heavy books and then translated into oatmeal. Your eyelids begin to drift. You pretend to adjust your sash. Someone coughs. You snap upright. Remember that music vigil. Your body does. You are now entering hour 25 of uninterrupted formality. A noble to your right offers you a date. You accept it like a sacred object. It is chewy, sweet, and barely distracting. You chew it exactly 12 times, just to maximize the moment. Suddenly, there's motion near the throne. A gift is being presented, an ivory miniature of a dancing peacock. Carved so delicately it seems to breathe. The emperor smiles, a real one. It's the first expression you've seen since he entered. The entire court collectively exhales. You wonder what would happen if you tried to present a gift. Perhaps a pouch of crushed saffron, or your left shoe, which is currently squeezing your toes into an origami of pain. You keep this idea to yourself, The court scribes begin documenting the proceedings. Each movement, each phrase, each eyebrow twitch is recorded on scrolls that will later be stored in velvet cases. You hope your minor seat adjustment doesn't make it into the archives. Visitor fidgeted slightly. Possibly treason. A group of visiting merchants is announced. They bow. They speak. They present textiles from Persia, a falcon from Kabul, and a clock that ticks with eerie precision. The emperor leans forward. Everyone else leans forward. You do too. Though your back is beginning to protest. The falcon squawks. The merchants flinch. The bird is led out with more dignity than you've been granted all morning. You're offered panna, betel leaf folded round spices and nuts. You take it gratefully, expecting refreshment. Instead, you get a mouthful of cinnamon-coated gravel and the slow, creeping burn of clove oil behind your eyes. You nod as if you enjoy it. Everyone else seems to. Your modern brain briefly reflects on your old meetings, PowerPoint presentations, and someone forgetting to unmute themselves. Now you're sitting cross-legged on marble, praying your ankles don't fall asleep before your brain does. The sun begins to move across the sky. Light shifts in the room, changing the mood without anyone speaking. You realize this is deliberate. The architecture is part of the ceremony. The shadows are designed. Even the breeze, when it flows through the lattice, is scheduled. The emperor dismisses the court. Everyone bows. You do too. Slowly, carefully, your legs have congealed. Standing is an act of faith. You follow the crowd out. Your robe now trailing in a way that might be elegant, if not for the sweat pooling at your lower back. An attendant hands you a brass goblet of spiced water. You sip. It tastes like fennel and obligation, you are told. Lunch will follow, served on leaf plates in the Jasmine Pavilion. You smile. Weakly. Remember that purification ritual this morning. It prepared you for this, to be publicly uncomfortable, privately confused, and always gracious. You walk all rather. Shuffle toward the Jasmine Pavilion. The name conjures images of gentle breezes, soft light, and an elegant spread of food placed just so. Reality offers something more, interactive, because while you were picturing a garden brunch, what awaits you is the mule version of a high-stakes performance. Zen dining with poetry and posture check. KS. The pavilion is exquisite, of course. White marble columns rise like fluted stalks round you, their capitals carved into delicate lotus blooms. The ceiling above is a wooden lattice, woven with actual jasmine vines that release their scent with every breath of air. Petals are already strewn across the floor, and you can't tell if they fell naturally or were placed there by someone whose job is to anticipate falling flowers. Low wooden platforms are arranged for lunch. Each is topped with brass trays, banana leaf plates, and ornate silver water vessels that glint in the sunlight. You're seated gently but firmly on a brocade cushion with just enough stuffing to disappoint your Tilone. You smile to no one in particular. No one smiles back. There's no menu. That would be vulgar. Instead, a servant arrives and places a covered platter in front of you. He unveils it like a magician. Inside, rice spiced with saffron, a lentil stew that smells faintly of caramelized cumin, and a cube of something green that you hope is a dessert. It isn't. It's pickled something, probably bitter melon. You try it. You immediately regret your optimism. A second course follows, and with it, a soft voice from across the platform, a court poet, reciting verses about divine nourishment and the patience of rice. You nod politely, chewing slowly, trying to find a rhythm between stanzas. The problem is, every word he says feels like it should be applauded or at least acknowledged, and you are currently negotiating. A spoonful of spicy yogurt and something uncomfortably crunchy. Remember the parrot poetry. This is its culinary cousin. elegant, confusing, and impossible to eat through. One of your dining neighbors drops a spoon. A servant silently replaces it before it hits the floor. You marvel at the reflex. It's like the palace trains for this. Maybe there's a secret service of utensil interception. Your fingers are sticky. You reach for the lemon-scented water to rinse them. But the bowl is ornamental. The actual rinse water is to feet to your left, obscured by a decorative fruit pyramid. You reach, you lean, you wobble. Someone gasps quietly. You nod like you did it on purpose. Historians still argue whether mule meals were meant for nourishment or theater. Some claim the court designed every dining experience to mirror divine abundance. With dishes ranged to echo cosmological symbols, others suspect it was just a really elaborate way to outfeast the Persian Empire. The food itself is phenomenal, if you can figure out how to eat it without violating 3 etiquette rules. Your rice is garnished with slivered almonds and rose petals. It smells like perfume and hunger, but you're supposed to mix it with the korma, using only your fingertips, shaping each bite into a small ball before lifting it to your mouth. Not too large, not too fast, and certainly no licking your fingers. You try. Your rice rebels. It disintegrates halfway to your mouth, cascading down your front like golden snow. You freeze. A servant materializes. Another napkin appears. The poet continues. Meanwhile, the temperature is rising. Your robe, though thinner than earlier versions, has a collar that presses like a thumb against your throat. You shift. You smile. You pretend that your kneecaps aren't screaming. The jasmine petals beneath your elbow begin to wilt from shared exhaustion. You're offered a cup of sherbet, a chill drink made with crushed fruit, sugar, and something that tastes suspiciously like ground flowers. It's delicious. It also has small seeds that get caught between your teeth. You smile anyway. Your diplomacy now. A flute begins to play. This is the cue for dessert. Sweets are presented on a golden tray, sticky lattice, slivers of sugared fennel, and a pudding that quivers when you breathe too hard. You inhale the aroma, cardamom, honey, rose. You feel a flicker of actual joy, and then the pudding slides off the tray onto your lap. You sit frozen, willing it not to stain. It does. His servant sees. He hesitates, then pretends not to. You nod. He nods. You are now bonded by mutual denial. You glance around the pavilion. No one else seems fazed. The emperor, seated at the far end, is being served a dish made entirely of silvered almonds. You wonder if he eats or just approves. Remember that scented oil from your purification earlier. It's now mingled with saffron rice and custard into something you could sell as royal fatigue. Eventually, the meal winds down. A final poem is offered. A farewell song is hummed. A servant places a single clove in your palm, wrapped in a rose petal. It's meant to refresh your breath. It tastes like a floral slap. You rise carefully. Your knees whisper threats. Your robe clings. You bow to the emperor, not too deeply. You are dismissed with grace and sticky fingers. On your way out of the pavilion, you're invited to take a short stroll through the Zenana garden, a gesture of peace. They say. You say yes. Mostly because walking is better than explaining. Stain on your robe. The garden is lush and symmetrical, each plant placed with obsessive precision. Birds chirp from golden cages. Fountains gurgle like polite laughter. You sit beneath the neem tree and breathe. It's quiet. To quiet, a handmaiden appears with a scroll. You are summoned to write a poem about lunch. Remember that green cube you didn't understand. It will now be immortalized in verse. You're escorted to a shaded writing pavilion nestled among pomegranate trees, where the scent of ripe fruit hovers like a sweet fog. The breeze is kind. The sunlight filtered, and for the first time all day, you dare to hope. You're here to write, in peace, with a cushion under you and a cool clay jug of water nearby. How bad could this be? Then the scribe hands you the scroll, but it's blank. Of course it is. You're expected to compose imperfect Persian verse, a short poetic reflection on your dining experience. Your hostess even suggested a theme, transcendence through lentils. You are not sure if that's metaphorical or autobiographical. You suppose it doesn't matter either way. Your brain is tapioca at this point. You dip the reed pen into the inkwell, practicing the calligraphy strokes you barely remember. The first curve goes well. The second ends with a blot. You turn the scroll slightly. Pretend it was intentional. The scribe smiles tight, polite. Pained. This is your first reminder that Mughal courtly etiquette extends to writing posture. Your elbow must not rest on the table. Your wrist must hover like a bird preparing for a spiritual flight. Your back must remain straight, your gaze soft. Your forehead ever so slightly furrowed in philosophical effort. You feel like a decorative lamp trying to do taxes. You begin to write. You make it one line and beneath jasmine sky, the lentil weeps, then stop. That can't be right. Can lentils weep? You scratch it out. The scribe visibly flinches. A blot on a royal scroll is not a minor error, it's a narrative tragedy. You try again. Saffron rice like golden snow. You pause. You remember the rice, falling all over your robe. You sigh. The metaphor is too personal, too triggering. You start to sweat again. Even in the breeze, the robe, you realize, has a new issue. It creaks, not loudly, but enough that every time you shift, the embroidery rubs with the subtle protest of over-polished thread. You scan the garden for inspiration. A peacock struts nearby. Utterly indifferent to your crisis, its feathers catch the light in such a way that it looks like it's wearing better jewelry than you. You glare at it. It glares back. You're in a poem duel with a bird now. Historians still argue whether these poetic interludes were truly artistic exercises or thinly disguised loyalty checks. Some believe the poems were quietly evaluated for philosophical depth. Others suspect they were just a test to see if you could sit still without ruining imperial stationery. Your hand cramps. The pen slips. Another blot. The scribe winces. You smile at him like someone who's absolutely going to be exiled by sunset. To recover, you try a modern trick. Write what you know, so you compose, "O custard that betrayed my lap." Draped in almond lies, you pause. You look round. Did anyone hear that? No. Good. You lean in. You keep going. You write about the spice, the sweat, the sound of your own hunger turning into philosophy. You write until the lines feel like they might pass as reflective instead of delirious. You end with a vague metaphor about mango blossoms and mercy. You are not sure it makes sense, but it feels profound, which, you've learned, is almost the same thing here. The scroll is taken from you with reverence. It will be dried, pressed, and probably archived forever in a box you hope no one ever opens. You are complimented for your fluid script, which is generous, considering half of it looks like you were shaking from caffeine withdrawal, which you are, because there's no coffee here. Instead, they offer you Kos sherbet, a pale green drink made from vetiver root. It's cooling. They say, good for the soul. It tastes like a wet forest. You sip politely and imagine your soul curling into a corner, just as you begin to feel the tiniest flicker of relief. Task completed. Poem archived. Feet ere a bell rings in the distance. You look to the scribe. He nods. That bell means posture training. You're not making that up. Apparently. The emperor is hosting a session on proper courtly composure, how to walk, stand, kneel, and rise without disturbing the air around you. You are, of course, expected to attend. You arrive in the training courtyard where a line of nobles, young and old, are already attempting to glide across marble tiles without letting their feet slip. You join the line. You are instructed to place a scroll atop your head. It is weighted slightly. Your first attempt is a disaster. The scroll falls, you lurch. A passing pigeon looks personally offended. The trainer clicks his tongue in a way that sounds both disappointed and ancient. You try again. Slower this time. One foot in front of the other. Heel belly kissing tile. Shoulders back, chin lifted. You are a swan. Is sticky, uncertain. Slightly hunched swan. Someone in front of you sneezes, the scroll flutters, 3 people wobble. One nobleman stumbles directly into a shrub. The trainer sighs deeply, as if he has spent a lifetime shepherding clumsy ghosts. Your turn comes again. This time, you manage 3 full steps before the scroll tilts. You compensate with your neck. You resemble a noble giraffe contemplating betrayal. But you do not fall. The scroll stays. You feel victorious. Then, the instructor adjusts your elbow by half a degree and mutters, "Now you're almost human." Historians still debate the purpose of this art of stillness training. Some say it was about channeling divine elegance. Others believe it was simply a way to separate the truly disciplined from those who fidget like wind-blown flags. You know which one you are. The lesson ends. You are allowed to return to your quarters for a brief rest. You take the phrase and hold it like a relic. As you cross the garden again. You pass your own poem already hung on a display ribbon with others. Someone is reading it. They nod thoughtfully. Then they whisper something to a friend and both giggle. You walk a little faster. Remember that green cube from lunch? Yeah, it rhymed with grief. Rest. That magical word. You whisper it in your head like a prayer as you approach your quarters. A brief rest. They said. That's all you need. And now. A horizontal moment. Something involving stillness that doesn't involve scrolls, saucers, or scrolls about saucers. The servant opens the carved sandalwood door. Inside. Dim light. The smell of vetiver and rose. A silk-draped bed low to the ground. And silence, sweet, unbroken, cushiony silence. You sit, you recline, you sigh. This is it. You've earned this. But then another knock. Of course. A court attendant enters. He's holding a lacquered box and a face that says, "I didn't schedule this. But it's happening anyway." You nod before he even explains. You've learned that resistance only delays the inevitable. You are summoned, he says gently, to the garden gallery. The emperor wishes to observe the evening meditations. Meditation? That sounds quiet, gentle, soft, even. You rise slowly, every joint announcing itself. Your robe is wrinkled in places where physics says it shouldn't be. You smooth it. Out with half-hearted swipes and follow him through the corridor of flickering oil lamps. The garden gallery is glowing under the early evening sky. Lanterns swing from branches. A carpet of woven reeds stretches across the grass. Low cushions are placed in a wide circle, and at the center nothing. No throne, no tray. Just a quiet emptiness meant to symbolize the space where the divine might sit, should the divine feel curious. You take your seat among the other nobles. No one speaks. You're told to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and release your thoughts. You close your eyes, you breathe. You immediately become aware of 1,000 things. Your tunic is pinching under your arm. There's a stray jasmine petal wedged behind your ear. Your back itches in a place reachable only by trained monkeys. You try to ignore it. A bell sounds, not a loud one, just a soft ting, the signal to begin. The court meditation practice is part Sufi mysticism, part performance, art, and part covert test. You are expected to maintain stillness, radiate humility, and possibly access spiritual insight all while sitting on a reed mat with poor lumbar support and 50 layers of cloth. Historians still argue whether these sessions were ever effective. Some accounts suggest emperors like Akbar truly achieved transcendental moments during these gatherings. Others suggest everyone was too busy trying not to sneeze to have any actual thoughts. You attempt to focus on your breath. Inhale, exhale, jasmine, damp linen, something musky. Is that your own sandal? Possibly. Your thoughts wander. You try to bring them back. Your foot falls asleep. You try not to twitch. Someone nearby sighs meaningfully, as though they've just glimpsed eternity. You envy them. You're glimpsing a growing blister. A gust of wind flutters the reed mat. A nearby lamp flickers. A servant walks silently through the line, placing small cups of rose water at each person's side. You reach for yours. The motion is too fast. You slosh some onto your sleeve. You freeze, pretending this was a holy gesture. It might have been. You are not sure anymore. The meditation continues. Your back slumps. You straighten it. Your neck stiffens. You rotate it. Softly, quietly, a petal falls from a nearby tree onto your shoulder. It rests there like a judgmental whisper. Your mind drifts back to the meal, the scroll's terrible rhyme, the way that one courtier definitely smoked. You remember the music vigil, the oil bath, the eyebrow plucking. You remember the rice, you remember the pudding. You try to forget the pudding, then something shifts. A voice begins to hum, low, tonal. It vibrates in your chest. It's not singing, it's not speaking, just humming. One note, held gently. It moves through the circle like a ripple in a pond, passed from one courtier to the next. No cue is given. No names are called. Each person simply knows when to. Hum. The voice comes closer. Your next. You panic. You hum. It's not great, but it's not terrible. A tired bumblebee would be proud. The note passes on. You breathe again. After the final note, there's silence. Not empty silence, full silence. Like the pause between waves. You sit in it, unsure what's expected. No applause, no commentary, just being. Sitting, being. A bell rings again. Meditation is over. Everyone rises. You follow, slowly, carefully, pretending your legs aren't tingling like anxious jellyfish. His steward approaches with the lacquer box from earlier. He opens it. Inside, a series of carved tokens, each one a different shape. You are told to choose one. No explanation is given. You pick a crescent moon. The steward nods. As if this was deeply symbolic. It probably was. It might also determine your dinner seating. You're led down a moonlit path lined with sugarcane and lanterns. At the end is a stone bench overlooking a pool filled with lotus blossoms. You're offered warm milk infused with crushed pistachios and a trace of nutmeg. It's strangely soothing. A servant recites a short verse about time. Another hands you a shawl. You are allowed, for the first time today, to lean back. The stars come out. The sky breathes. You think, maybe. This is the luxury they meant all along. Not the robes, not the rituals, but this moment. Silence, stillness, warm milk, and the hum of your own heartbeat matching the rhythm of someone else's dreams. Then a bell rings. Again. You are summoned to review the palace's evening illumination, a ritual of walking through each lantern-lit chamber and offering nods of vague approval. You stand. Remember that crescent moon token. Turns out it means no rest until after fire inspection. You're no longer surprised when you're summoned mid-sigh. At this point, you're conditioned. Bell equals movement. No matter how lovely the moment to shoal, a pool of lotus blossoms, milk warmed to perfection, there's always another ceremonial turn just waiting to unravel your sense of peace like an embroidered sleeve snagged on a gilded door handle. Tonight's task, the Palace Illumination Review, a tradition steeped in symbolism. You're told, each lantern lit in honor of divine light, imperial glory, and the Emperor's personal preference for things that twinkle. You are handed a carved staff, tipped with a miniature golden flame. Not functional, just decorative. You are also handed a scroll of what appears to be lamp roots. You smile blankly and tuck it under your arm. The review begins at the Peacock Gate, aptly named, as an actual peacock screeches from its perch the moment you arrive. Perhaps sensing your inner instability, a servant bows low and gestures dramatically to the first lantern, a towering iron stand wrapped in saffron cloth and dripping with marigold chains. It glows faintly. You nod. The servant nods. A scribe writes something down. This is how it goes. For the next hour, you stroll through chambers and courtyards, offering solemn nods to over 200 sources of light, or lamps, butter lamps. Lanterns made from ground pearl and goatskin. Some flicker like nervous thoughts. Others burn with a confidence you haven't known since breakfast. You pass a corridor lined with mirrors. Each lantern reflected a dozen times until you feel like you're being watched by your own. Indecision, a monkey dashes by, dragging what looks like someone's sash. No one reacts. Apparently, the monkey lives here. You bow to it, just in case by the third chamber. Your brain begins naming the lanterns. That one's Barry. He's always too bright. That one in the alcove. Definitely a Fred, slightly off kilter. Smells faintly of sesame oil and disappointment. Historians still debate the true purpose of the nightly light review. Some claim it originated from ancient fire rituals honoring the Zoroastrian roots of certain mule courtiers. Others believe it was simply a passive-aggressive way for the emperor to ensure no servant was sleeping on the job. You suspect it's both. You're certainly not asleep. The halls grow warmer with each chamber. You're starting to overheat again. Your shawl clings. Your decorative staff feels heavier. A drop of sweat rolls down your temple and lands on your scroll, blowing the ink. You pretend not to notice. You enter a hall of lamps shaped like lotuses, each one floating in a carved stone basin. They flicker delicately, casting shimmering shadows across the ceiling. You're asked to comment. You clear your throat and say, serene. The servant beams. The scribe writes. You begin to suspect. You could say crispy and they'd still record it as reverence. At the fifth stop, someone sneezes loudly. All heads turn. A moment of tension. Then, blessedly, the emperor steward who has joined the procession silently smiles and says, blessings upon the air. The sneezer nearly faints with relief. You, meanwhile, wish someone would bless your inner thigh, which is rapidly chafing against the imperial robe's lining. The next chamber is the most ornate yet. Lamps suspended on golden chains, swinging gently as if the room itself is breathing. The floor beneath them is polished so finely that the reflections look like twin flames. You walk carefully, trying not to become the first guest to slip into a mirrored illusion and have to be rescued by servants wielding floral fans. You pass by a mural of the emperor and his court. Painted years ago in vibrant hues, everyone looks serene, radiant, aloof. You recognize the posture training poses. You try to mimic one. Your hip clicks. You pretend it was the lantern dot as you near the outer courtyard. You're asked to bless the main ceremonial lamp, a towering constrict shaped, like a banyan tree, with tiny clay lamps perched on every branch like fireflies. You are handed a taper and told to light the final lamp. You step forward. The courtyard watches. You reach out. The taper flickers in your grip. You touch it to the wick. The flame hesitates. You hold your breath. Then life, the wick catches. Light blooms dot the crowd exhales. A bell chimes. Ceremonial success. You bow slightly. A servant takes the taper. The scribe records the moment. You are now immortalized as honored illuminator. You consider demanding a badge. But there's no time dot because now you're ushered to a rooftop terrace, yes. More walking for the final Sky Lantern release. A symbolic gesture of unity between the heavens and the Empire. And also, apparently, your cab's final test. The terrace overlooks the palace grounds. Dozens of lanterns are prepared, each one crafted from dyed silk and rice paper, painted with celestial designs. You're handed one. It bears the symbol of the moon, a nod to your earlier token. You feel the full narrative arc settling round your shoulders like another decorative shawl. Together with the others, you light the base of the lantern. It fills with heat, lifts gently, and floats upward into the night sky. Others follow. The sky slowly blooms with soft, flickering light amber stars against indigo velvet dot. You watch them rise. And for the first time all day, you feel genuinely still. The breeze is cool. The robe is softening in the night air. Your hands smell faintly of sandalwood and wax. The city beyond the palace glows faintly, distant and quiet. Then a voice says, "Your bed is prepared." You turn. The servant bows. You nod. Grateful dot. Finally dot. You walk back through halls now dimmed, past the last flickers of lanterns and the distant hum of water trickling through marble fountains. You are wrapped in shadow, softness, the vague ache of your feet and the specific ache of being regal adjacent. Remember that scroll with the lamproot? You're going to burn it, gently, with ceremony. You expect sleep. You crave it. You deserve it. But instead, you find yourself standing again in yet another chamber. This one lined with velvet drapes and a faint, almost medicinal rumor of myrrh. The servant who promised your bed smiles apologetically and says, "There is one last evening ritual." A small one. You nod. You are beyond speech now. Your eyelids blink independently. Your spine is negotiating a work stoppage. The chamber is small, quiet, softly lit. At the center, a marble pedestal bearing a cushion. On the cushion, a scroll. On the scroll, a quill, an inkpot, and a golden hourglass. You're guided to sit before it. This, the servant whispers, is the reflection scroll. Every guest must write a thought before retiring. You blink. You wrote a poem earlier. You reviewed fire safety lanterns. You hummed. You walked. You blessed the Empire with a taper. Surely your contribution is enough. But the servant is already gone dot, so you sit. The cushion is surprisingly warm, probably from the last guest. You consider leaving the scroll blank and claiming divine inspiration, but you know the scribe will definitely read it. You sigh softly, reverently, with just enough sorrow to sound noble and take the quill. You write, "I came for peace, but found posture. I bent like a reed and broke like one. Also, your rice is spicier than advertised." You pause, cross out the last sentence. Replace it with, "The jasmine carried me somewhere I've yet to return from." That feels poetic, sleepy, slightly confused, perfect. You place the quill down. The hourglass is still half full, but you take that as a sign to leave. You rise slowly, carefully, like someone preserving the illusion of dignity. You are escorted, finally, to your sleeping quarters. This room is different, darker, quieter, heavier with silence. The air is cool, the bed is low, draped with sheer muslin and framed in dark wood carved into vines and feathers. A brazier glows faintly in the corner. There are no scrolls, no trays, no bells. Just a soft bed. And 3 ceremonial steps before you can use it. You are guided through them. Step 1. Remove your shoes and touch your forehead to the sleeping cushion, acknowledging the day's weight and the humility of its end. Step 2. Take a drop of oil from the clay vessel beside the bed and rub it onto your temples. It smells like nutmeg. And surrender. Step 3. Lie down facing east, toward the Emperor's chamber. As a gesture of shared dusk, you comply. It's easier than rebellion. You exhale. Historians still argue whether this sleep ritual was meant to instill discipline or simply offer closure. Some describe it as spiritual hygiene, cleansing the mind before dreams. Others suggest it was another way to ensure even unconsciousness followed protocol. You don't care. Your eyes are closed. And then soft footsteps. Not again. But this time, it's different. A quiet figure enters with a clay bowl of warm milk and crushed almonds. You take it. You sip. It tastes of cardamom and something almost maternal. The figure bows and places a silk cloth over your legs. No words. Just a nod. Then they vanish. The lamp dims on its own. Or maybe you imagined that. The silence deepens. Not empty silence, but the kind that feels padded and intentional, you think. Not just into the mattress, but into a softness that asks nothing of you. No posture, no poetry, no perspective. The pillow smells like rose and thyme. You drift. Somewhere far away, a peacock cries. You smile, because it's not your problem anymore. Dawn returns to the Mule Palace, not with sudden light, but with the slow stretching of shadows and a silence that deepens before it lifts. You don't so much wake up as drift upward into the new day, carried on a warm current of rose-scented breath and distant birdsong. Your eyes remain closed for a moment longer, your limbs unwilling to rejoin the choreography of royal survival. But of course, rest is not meant to linger. A soft knock sounds. A servant enters without speaking, placing a porcelain basin of water at your side and a folded robe of soft cotton and pale green silk embroidered with a motif you're too tired to decode. The morning robe. Of course, you sit up slowly, your back resisting, your hips creaking like temple doors. The room remains dim, and for once, no ceremonial procession waits beyond the door, just the vague outline of another obligation. Not yet named. You are informed, once again with gentle brevity, that today you will join the Emperor's Circle of Reflection, a practice where members of the inner court take turns walking the palace perimeter, discussing matters of spirit, architecture, astronomy, or nothing at all. You are not given a topic. Only a pair of sandals that are slightly too small and a date stuffed with almonds to chew during the first lap. You are not hungry. You eat it anyway. You are guided to the northern gate, where the Emperor already waits beneath a neem tree, flanked by a handful of nobles who look far too alert for this hour. Each wears a robe of muted color, their hands tucked into sleeves, faces composed like manuscripts serene on the surface, unreadable beneath. The walk begins without ceremony. The Emperor leads. No words are spoken for the first stretch, only the sound of feet brushing stone, the rustle of trees, the hum of water coursing through the narrow marble channels that run alongside the path. You fall into step behind a nobleman whose perfume smells like sandalwood and sandalwood's older, richer cousin. Your own robe swishes with each movement, the embroidery at your cuffs brushing your wrist in steady rhythm. The breeze is kind. The heat hasn't risen yet. For the briefest stretch of time, the palace feels like it might be bearable. Then the questions begin. The Emperor turns to the man beside him and asks, what shape is peace? The man answers after only a moment's pause, a dome. Your Majesty. It contains, it echoes, but it does not trap. A murmur of agreement follows. You quietly panic. The Emperor moves to the next and truth. A woman responds, a pole, Majesty. Formed from discomfort, hidden in dullness, hard to crack. Another proving silence. You are third. He turns. His gaze is not unkind, but it is weighty, as if your next sentence will be carved into a pillar or painted into a mural. He asks, and sleep. You blink. Your mind races through metaphors. A river, a bird, a rebellion that ends. You hear yourself say, a borrowed cloak, Majesty, heavy with another's warmth, taken off before it's worn through, silence, long enough to frighten you. Then, a faint smile from the Emperor. The circle moves on. You exhale, just barely. Historians still argue over these walking rituals. Some claim they were genuine exercises in collective reflection. A kind of moving philosophy where rank was softened by shared stride. Others believe they were subtle loyalty tests. Observe who keeps pace, who speaks truth, who flatters. You suspect both are true, and you also suspect that flattery requires less legwork. The perimeter path curves past the outer kitchens, where the day's bread is already baking. The scent of wheat and heat and cumin curls into the morning air. Your stomach remembers itself. Another servant appears with a tray of lemon, water, and salted mango slivers. You accept both with something close to reverence. The mango tastes like memory, sunlight, and salt, and something slightly overripe. You chew slowly, hoping for strength. The Emperor stops to inspect a lotus pool. He crouches, fingers grazing the water's surface. Round him, no one breathes too loudly. You copy this. Watching as he lifts a single droplet and lets it fall again. You are reminded, for reasons you cannot explain, of the green cube from lunch 2 days ago. You wonder if that too was meant to teach detachment. As the walk continues, conversation turns to architecture. One noble praises the design of the audience hall, another muses on the metaphysics of symmetry. You contribute a half-thought about the corridor of mirrors, how it felt like being watched by your own uncertainty. Someone writes it down. You hope that's good. The sun rises higher. Your robe begins to trap heat again. The cotton underneath sticks faintly to your back. You shift subtly, recalling the muscle memory of posture training. Your body aches with the humility of repetition. Each step feels like a lesson you weren't meant to pass. By the time the circle returns to the northern gate, your calves burn and your thoughts blur into something soft and useless. But you bow at the end with the same grace you began. And this is enough. Afterward, you are told there is a window of pause before the midday readings. You do not question this. You return to your quarters, remove the sandals, collapse onto the nearest pillow like a toppled statue, and stare at the ceiling fan, not turning, but carved like it once meant to. You consider the question posed earlier: what shape is sleep? You decide now it's a slope, gentle, inescapable, and always downhill. The servant knocks gently. You do not move. He enters anyway, bearing a single scroll. You groan without opening your mouth. He says, "It is not for writing." You sit up. He unrolls it. It is a painting your likeness. Seated in the garden, a poem beneath your image. Not your poem, but someone's version of it. It reads, "Beneath the arc of almond sky." He wrote with sweating fingers and saffron breath. We did not ask him to stay. He remained anyway. You stare. You blink. You consider requesting royalties. Then decide sleep is payment. Enough. But sleep does not come. Because someone outside is rehearsing a lute solo. And your pillow smells like mangoes. The lute playing outside continues with a dedication bordering on vengeance. Each plucked string shudders through your skull. Persistent as a question no one asked, but everyone has to answer. You lie there, eyes open, robe still halfway untied, wondering if you are part of the melody, now perhaps a dissonant note. Quietly regretting every mango-based decision of the last 48 hours, eventually. A servant appears to inform you that the midday recitation chamber is prepared. You sit up without asking questions. At this point, questions are just expensive ways to prolong inevitability. The chamber is different from others you visited. It is circular, domed, with pale green walls decorated in thin gold lines that spiral upward like vines reaching for silence. The floor is padded with layered carpets, cool beneath your feet. Round the perimeter sit scholars, poets, courtiers each, holding a scroll or a small cushion, ranged in a ring of very well-groomed fatigue. The air is dry, calm, vaguely scented with crushed cedar. At the center of the room, a pedestal topped with a sand timer. You are told that each person will recite, reflect, or remain silent until the sand runs out. Then the next begins. You're assigned position 7. The first speaker begins with a passage from an epic poem. Something about a cursed necklace and a tiger with philosophical leanings. It is beautiful and long. The second simply chants the name of a river until the sand disappears. The third tells a parable about a blind cook and a burnt feast. Everyone nods as if they've eaten it. The fourth weeps, gently, artistically. No one offers tissues. That would be crass. Historians still debate the function of these recitation sessions. Some say they were safe spaces for emotional release in a hyperstructured world. Others argue they served as controlled pressure valves for courtiers on the brink of spontaneous poetry. Either way, it is your turn. You rise. Your robe, which has somehow gained weight since morning, shifts like wet canvas. You step to the pedestal, place your hand beside the sand timer, and begin. What emerges from your mouth is not exactly what you intended. You had prepared something clever. Perhaps a reflection on spice or symmetry. But what comes out is a quiet, meandering memory of the lanterns 2 nights ago, and the way they floated not up, but away. You speak about drift, about waiting, about how stillness in the palace is always rehearsed. The room stays quiet, the sand falls. When your time ends, you nod and return to your cushion. No one claps, of course not. But someone exhales audibly in a way that might be support. August. You sit through the remaining 5 recitations in a state of mild temporal confusion. One noble delivers a list of smells from his childhood, ending with lime, pickle, and linen. Another simply says, "We're all scrolls written over," and then drinks from a bowl of water with exaggerated finality. The last is a boy of about 12 who quotes a riddle in perfect Sanskrit, then blinks at everyone like he just won something. He did. Afterward, the room dissolves into silence. Not ceremonial, just real. People stretch. Someone sneezes. No one is punished. You feel, for the first time in hours, like maybe no one's watching. You are invited to a meal, but you politely decline. The thought of more ceremonial rice makes you joyous instead. You wander to the outer colonnade, where wind moves like a tired hand over the carved lattice. You lean against a pillar. The stone cool against your back and look out. Over the garden, the light has begun to shift again, more amber than gold now. The peacock circles a tree with theatrical indifference. In the distance, you see a servant carrying a teapot too large for a practicality. Everything is exactly as it should be, and also completely absurd. You're approached quietly by a steward with a box. You recognize him, the same one from the lamp procession. He opens the box inside. Tokens again. But this time, instead of selecting one, you are instructed to return yours. The crescent moon you chose 2 days ago. You hand it back. He places it into a velvet-lined slot and closes the lid. The moon's duty is done. He says, now it is the sun's turn to carry weight. You are not told what that means, but you are now expected to join the Emperor's hour of unspeaking, a ritual in which he walks the southern perimeter without any conversation, allowing the day's meanings to digest like a ceremonial fig dot, and so you walk. Again dot your sandals are worn now, one strap fraying just enough to cause a limp you try to mask with posture. You pass the herb garden, the perfumery, the aviary where a parrot mutters invective with unnerving accuracy. The Emperor walks 20 paces ahead, flanked by no one, occasionally. He pauses to touch a leaf or stare at a patch of shadow as if it might reveal something. You mimic this, though your leaf has bite marks on it and smells faintly of your Adal. By the time you complete the loop, the sky has deepened into honey and rust. The wind is stronger now. Servants begin lighting the first of the evening lamps. You are dismissed with a soft nod. You return to your quarters. This time, no one stops you. No scrolls, no musical summons, no ceremonial metaphors, just the door. And inside, your bed, your actual bed with fresh sheets, warm water, and a tray of dates that no one expects you to describe in verse. You remove your robe, now officially the heaviest thing you own, and stretch beneath the thin cotton sheets. Your bones crack like kindling. Your mind floats somewhere between jasmine and exhaustion. You wonder if the Emperor ever lies like this, unsure if the day's meaning was in the ritual or in surviving it. You suspect he does. You suspect everyone does. You close your eyes, and then you remember the final banquet. Of course, it's tonight, and you're seated at the Emperor's table. The final banquet isn't announced so much as it manifests. One moment you're lying beneath clean linen sheets, floating somewhere between memory and collapse, and the next, a servant stands in the doorway with a lamp and a tray bearing gold earrings shaped like lotus. But to complete your attire, he says with a bow, as if this is a reasonable sentence to hear when you're half dreaming and smelling faintly of cardamom. You sit up, slowly, every joint weighing in with a warning. You reach for the robe that's been laid out for you, midnight blue with silver embroidery, heavier than modesty and clearly designed to be seen under candlelight. You slip into it. You fasten the sash. You accept the earrings. You say nothing. You are guided through a side corridor lined with glowing lanterns shaped like stars, each one throwing sharp patterns onto the floor like frozen lace. The air is warm again. The robe begins its slow embrace of your shoulders, spine, and upper shins. By now, you are used to the ceremonial brevity of clothing. You no longer ask what's expected. You just follow the light. The banquet is held in the hall of mirrors, a vast space open to the night sky, ringed with arches inlaid with thousands of tiny glass fragments that catch every flicker of flame and split it into constellations. It's less a room and more a hallucination built for royalty. Low tables circle a central fountain where rose petals float in calm spirals. Every place setting glints with gold, and at the head of it all sits the Emperor, serene, unreadable, already surrounded by figures whose robes shimmer like oil on water. You are shown to your seat with the careful choreography of someone placing an heirloom on a high shelf. You nod. You fold your hands. You perform the half-smile of someone neither fully awake nor fully sane. You are offered a goblet of chilled tamarind and pomegranate nectar. You sip. It's sweet, sour, and vaguely apologetic. Then, the food begins. Dozens of small dishes arrive in silence, each one more elaborately garnished than the last. There are golden lentils cooked with dried rosebuds, quail stuffed with pistachio and apricot, rice that smells like it grew up in a poetry school, and bread folded into shapes that resemble regional emblems you can't name. It's all beautiful, It's all deeply suspicious. The emperor raises a hand. The music begins slow. Rolling Rog played on sitar and accompanied by tabla so delicate you wonder if the drummer is just tapping with feathers. Conversation begins, quiet, fluid, effortless. You are spoken to once. A noble asks you which dish you find most reflective. You answer, the rice. It's like a memory of something that never quite existed. He nods solemnly and quotes a verse about longing. You nod in return, chewing something that may be marinated fig or regret. Halfway through the meal, a dancer appears, veiled in gauze, moving with the kind of precision that suggests sleep deprivation is her muse. She doesn't speak, she doesn't smile. She moves like time-given flesh. Everyone watches. No one applauds. When she vanishes, it feels like remembering a dream you didn't know you had. Dessert arrives in silver bowls, saffron syrup over shaved ice, candied hibiscus petals, and small cakes that burst with rose water and almond when you bite them. You're told the cakes were shaped by hand using antique molds from art. You nod. Of course they were. You take too. Historians still debate whether these final banquets were political maneuvers or genuine rituals of beauty. Some suggest the emperor used them to seal alliances and monitor loyalty through dietary decorum. Others believe it was a rare pause, a breathing space in the machinery of empire, where the illusion of leisure could momentarily feel real. You're too tired to care. All you know is the table glows. Your stomach is finally full, and your robe no longer feels like an adversary, just a heavy companion that has learned to live with you. Then comes the gift. You didn't know there would be a gift. A small box is placed in front of each guest. You open yours. Inside, a fragment of mirror set in an etched bronze frame. On the back, a line is carved. It reads, "What you reflect belongs to you. What you absorb belongs to the court. You stare at it longer than necessary. You don't know if it's a blessing or a warning. You place it back in the box and close the lid softly. The banquet ends not with fanfare, but with the dimming of lanterns, one by one, until the last flickers out and the hall becomes a chamber of reflections, moonlight, and half-finished thoughts. You stand, bow, and follow the line of nobles as they dissolve into shadowed corridors. Your room waits, cool and unlit. The robe falls from your shoulders onto the floor without resistance. You lie back onto the bed with no ceremony at all. No scroll, no servant, no candle, just silence. And so the palace lets go of you, not with dismissal, but with indifference. You are no longer a part of the machinery. You have played your part. You have been a guest, a vessel, a reflection. Now, you are only a breath in a room full of echoes. You close your eyes. This time, sleep doesn't borrow you, it claims you. Tonight you've traveled far, though not in miles. You've wandered through silk and stone, through scented corridors, and courtyards full of rituals too ornate to ever quite belong to the present. Your body has endured the weight of embroidered robes, the tension of silent judgment, the fatigue of pretending that formality is peace. But it's over now. You can let that go. Let the marble beneath your imagined feet fade back into softness. Let the flickering lamplight dissolve into shadow. Let the echo of peacocks, the brush of rose petals, the endless circling of ceremonial questions all drift away. Your breath slows, your jaw unclenches. There is no emperor watching now, no poetry to craft, no scroll to stain, just the quiet rhythm of rest. Curling round you like muslin in moonlight, the world of the Mule Palace recedes behind you, not erased, just folded away, like a robe pressed into a cedar chest. You don't need to carry it. You've seen its beauty. You've survived its weight. That's enough. Tonight, your dreams are your own. They smell not of rose or spice or ceremonial oil, but of stillness, of freedom, of the simple grace of lying in a quiet room, and touched by history, sleep deeply now, and whisper a thank you, maybe, for plumbing.